Why is it so important to find your calm as you're building a community? Well, my guest today, Deb Schell, is going to be talking about her book, Creator to Community Builder, on today's show. Kalisa, roll the opening. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever in the world you may happen to be. I'm so glad you're here. This is Talk About Your Community. I'm Todd, your host from Clocktower Advisors, an online community consultancy that helps organizations worldwide in the B2B and not-for-profit space to build terrific communities. And on this show, we talk about all the different kinds of community builders and opportunities and technologies. We're looking for different perspectives, ideas, diversities, and fun around the topic of building community. And today is no exception. I am honored and happy to have my friend Deb Schell and colleague who has worked with me through some projects at Clocktower Advisors. She is a colleague and co-founder of the Community Consultants Collective, and is for those of you who have attended any kind of online conferences or events, she is a frequent, amazing note taker and journalist and writer who is just an extraordinary overall human being who I am honored to know. Really glad to have her on the show today. Before I bring her on, just a couple of quick announcements. Would like to mention that the show is running every 2 weeks on Friday at 10 a.m. U.S. Central Time. Hope you can join us. This is a live and interactive show, so I'm always looking for comments and ideas and interactions. We'll sometimes put your comments up on the screen when we have them. But if you're here for the first time, give us a shout out. If you're back as a regular, let us know where you're calling in from or what's on your mind today. If you've got questions for Deb, we absolutely want to hear them. But the second announcement is that my next guest is going to be on Friday, October the 27th. Her name is Mary Blessing Oakley, and she is from She Code Africa, which is about empowering women in tech on the African continent. And she is absolutely a wonderful person. I've had a number of interactions with her over the past year or so, and I'm excited to have her on the show to tell her story and the work that she's doing as a community builder. So be sure to mark your calendars for that. We'll always have the events posted up ahead of time on the Clocktower Advisors company page. So I encourage you to follow that if you don't want to miss any announcements about upcoming shows. Our shows usually run about 30 to 45 minutes, and it flies by before we know it. So I'm honored that you're taking the time to come in and join us today. So with that being said, I want to bring on to the show here my friend Deb. Deb, welcome. It's great to see you again.
Hi there, Todd. It's great to be here again.
Yeah, it's been has it been about a year since the last time you were on the show?
2 years?
You're kidding me. It's been that long? Wow.
2021.
Well, I'm glad you're back. It's great to see you again. And you've got a book out. This is your first book?
Yes.
I know you've been putting so much effort and time and work into this. It's been a labor of love. Do you want to tell people a little bit about the book and sort of like what your inspiration was to write it?
Yeah, so the book is about my journey getting into community building, how I got there, and what I've been experiencing throughout the last few years in community building. So I wrote it because I thought it would be helpful for clients that I've had. It's kind of a guidebook. I initially posted it as a workbook, and it's actually became a book over the time. So yeah, it's all about community building and my journey.
Well, I think it's amazing. I've had a chance to go through it, and we'll definitely get into some of the meat of that today. Quick shout out to David Fergan. David, thank you for joining us. Great to see you again. David is another extraordinary community builder out in our space who has been an active part of the Clocktower's Community Consultants Collective group, and I know he's in a search right now. So if anybody is looking to hire an excellent community professional, he's a terrific guy to look at. So Deb, like in looking at the book, and of course, I've known you and worked with you now for a bit over a year, but I'm learning a little bit about your early journey and sort of what put you on the path back around 2018 to being in this community space was really interesting to me. Can you maybe give a little bit of background about what Location Indie was and sort of the stuff that you were doing with Exchange Mastermind Group and any of that early experience that was so formative in kind of getting you here?
Yeah, so I used to listen to a podcast called with Al Elrod, and he's the author of The Miracle Morning. And I had read that a couple years ago and got really inspired about how to, create a side hustle in an hour a day in the mornings and stuff. And I listened to his podcast pretty regularly between 20, let's say 27, 18, 19, and into 2020. And I had been doing in-person events in November of 2019 and January of 2020. I had hosted wellness events in my home to help friends and family find calm in the chaos of daily life, and we had some workshops that were really fun. And when I was planning on having one in April when the pandemic happened, and I was trying to figure out how to do things online since we couldn't meet in person. And I was listening to Hal's podcast at that time, and he had mentioned about having a free call that everybody could just jump on. And I was like, he has a large audience. And I'm like, well, that's gonna be a fun Zoom call. So I jumped on that call, and there was apparently like 500 people, and it crashed the call.
Ouch.
And then when I came back, when like it kind of figured itself out or whatever, there was like 80 of us in the same space, and then they broke us out into breakout rooms, and I was able to talk with one of the co-founder or the founder of Exchange, and he and I collaborated, and he said he would be happy to talk with me. So I talked with him, and he leads a program where it's more for companies or organizations to help them find solutions in different ways to help people communicate within an internal company or organization. And so, but what he was telling me was he found ways to do the work that he was doing virtually, and because he had been really doing in-person events as well. So he and I got on a call. He explained to me some ways to create meaningful conversations online, and helped me to design a new structure for a virtual workshop instead of an in-person one. And so with that, I had started to launch virtual events in 2020. I had ended up hosting over 30 events in 2020 over the year. And most of the people who spoke actually were members of a community called Location Indie. And Location Indie is a community that I joined, I think in 2017, I want to say. And I found them online ultimately because I was thinking I wanted to build an online business, and I didn't know anybody in my local area in central Pennsylvania who could help me. I didn't really know who to ask. So I was Googling online and found Location Indie and their community that brings travel people who love travel and who want to travel the world. I used to say digital nomads, but I joined that community a few years ago to help me build this online business. So that's kind of how I got involved with Exchange and with Location Indie. And I'll pause there because I said a lot. So
No, it's terrific. It is interesting how our early experiences with online collaborations or communities just influence how we look at them, for others, and sort of, it's so formative in that. Now, so something that stood out for me about your book also was just, I'm always looking for the personal elements. So as you and I know, like there are a lot of community building books, out there right now. but I'm always sort of like looking for like those personal elements, those nuggets of what's there. And one of the things that struck me as, you know, the way that you had constructed the book was you built the sections with some of your personal photography. And I was wondering if you could maybe talk about that a little bit and sort of like what went into the decision and what kinds of images you selected, because I know you're an artist and you're a curator, so I'm sure that that was very intentional on the things that you were trying to convey with those images.
No, not at all. No, yes. So I'm a photographer. I went to school for photojournalism, for anybody who doesn't know me, and worked really hard at being a photographer and having a photography business for 10 years that ultimately did not lead to being able to sustain me full time. And so it was always kind of a side hustle, and it struggled, and I was frustrated with it. And um, so, but I ended up finding ways to love it when I started doing photography exhibitions. And so I exhibited in over 20 locations in central Pennsylvania. And so what decided to do, I would say in 2017, when I was trying to figure out like what's my online business, I decided I wanted to be a travel writer. And so part of the reason why I joined Location Indie was to really understand how I can connect with people and pitch stories and do travel writing full time. And so, and a lot of, there were people in that group that were doing that at the time. And so I wanted to be one of them. So that was my goal for travel writing. But when a pandemic happens and nobody's traveling, that doesn't really pan out too well
Right.
for pitching stories because nobody's going anywhere. So that's when I kind of shifted my focus from travel writing to community building. But how did I choose the pictures? Basically, we're in line with what I was trying to align most of the pictures with the stories that I was telling through the book with because I had pictures from my experience in Mexico when I went to Mexico to hang out with Location Indie people in 2019. I had pictures from Denver when I was in Colorado in 2018. And so I wanted to use those in the book to emphasize the point of communities are magical for many reasons. And one of them is you can build real relationships with people who you stay friends with for years after that event has happened. So that's part of the reason why some of the ideas I selected. The pictures, the idea for adding the pictures in the book was actually my designer's, Paul's idea. He had suggested that because we were talking in the very beginning about what should be the cover. And I was initially thinking about a picture, one of my photographs being the cover. But I really didn't have anything that really could demonstrate what I was trying to say, what this book was about. So that's why Paul and I went with the designs that he had come up with for the book cover. And he decided, but why don't you put your photos inside the book? And I'm like, I can do that? And he goes, yeah, you can do anything you want. It's your book.
That's awesome. That's a great story. Well, and I think like I wanted to come back to something you said, because there's so much wisdom in this, and it's something that we need to convey to not only creators who I think will benefit greatly from this book, but even like corporate enterprise organizations that are thinking about community, or they're sort of wondering about community. You kind of sort of said it in passing, but community is magical, and the reason why is because of the people that you end up forming relationships with, that those relationships last for years and years. And that stood out for me in a quote that was just sort of in passing too, and at one of the early pages of the book, where you said, people aren't transactions. And it's such an important distinction. Like you can't look at it as a purely mercantile thing. Like, as much as I say, like, we need to balance between the missionary and the mercenary, the power is in the missionary side of it, and I love that you call that out in the book, and you talk about the importance of that human connection, and making that definitely work.
Yeah, I think that was one of the key things that I learned through my journey when I started, and then just working with clients over the last 3 years. We don't personally, individually, we don't want to be sold to, right? We
Right.
want to want something. We like wanting things. So when we talk about community, and I want you to come to my community, I hope that you want to come to my community. And that
Right.
has to be cultivated and created Like that messaging has to happen so that you understand why it's important to you. And I'm lucky enough that you want to be interested in participating versus how many members can I get? Because, you know, there's a lot of people out there that are selling you can get 10,000 members in a month and then, you know, walk away and enjoy, you know, your drink on the beach or something. And that's just not reality. It's just not. You know, it can be if you have a team, if you've been in business for a while, and if you have the resources to do that.
Right. But there's a great quote that I'll sometimes bring up by Ram Sethi, the author of "I'll Teach You to Be Rich." I'm not affiliated with him, so this is not an endorsement. But he talks about saying, like, I'd rather have 100 committed people than 1,000, you know, members of a group, or 10,000 or 1,000,000. And I mean, I think that's the key of it, and sort of setting the conditions where people feel empowered and enabled to participate, rather than like you can try to force it too much. Like you can create the antiseptic,
people do what they want.
Yeah, right.
I can't make anybody do anything, Todd. I can want you to love all of the resources in my community, and I can want you to show up at every event.
Right.
That's something I can want, but I can't make that happen.
Exactly.
And there's a disconnect with clients when they say, well, I want them to do this and I want them to do that. I'm like, cool, but you can't make them do those things.
Yes.
You can want them to do them, but you can't make them.
And if they can smell that you want them to do those things, like a million miles away. And so it's there's an Italian concept I'll pull from my literature days that's called sprezzatura. And what it basically means is practiced ease. And so it can't seem like you're trying to do that with them. It's got to feel natural and organic as you're kind of setting the conditions for that involvement. And I think that's something you convey in the book quite a bit. That, you know, sort of setting the natural conditions where people can choose to participate, where they can choose to be a part of that world. Hey, a quick shout out to Matthias Vleeming joining us from the road. Be safe, my friend. I think he's listening in. Great to see you. I think for those of you joining the stream, or if you're coming in afterwards, I want to make sure that you know about how to get Deb's book if you're interested in making the purchase, and I think it is well worth it. Kalisa, our erstwhile engineer working in the background here, she'll drop a link up in the chat for everybody if you want to go ahead and place an order for it. And I think yeah, there we go. Thank you very much. That's great. So, Deb, I wanted to ask you, and I know you maybe alluded to this a little bit earlier as you're talking about sort of your early journey, that you had convened, you know, people together to help them be calm or find peacefulness. Where did this come from for you? Like what? Why do I need to find calm in order to build a community?
Well, you don't need to. You don't have to. But it might be nicer to find calm than to experience stress. And a lot of clients that I've worked with have come to tell me that it's stressful sometimes when there's a lot of things. There's a lot of steps, and it seems like a lot of obstacles in our way to get to the goals we want to achieve. And so that's all I would say. It just takes time, and one day at a time, I guess.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah. Well, I've definitely been there working with prospects or customers when there's sort of a level of stress there that is getting in the way of them being successful, you know, and getting the results that they want to get to, because they're so fixated on, I need 10,000 followers. No, you don't. You need 5 followers that really get what you're doing, and then they'll bring you the rest of the.
But 10, the truth is that that's not even the need.
Yeah.
The need behind that is what are the 10,000 followers going to get you? Because that's not what you want either.
Yeah.
Like, you want what the 10,000 followers are going to give you, which is probably buying a product or a service.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so this is what I work with clients on. What's the actual goal? You say this, but that's not actually the goal. Let's go right to the goal. What is the goal? The goal is to make X amount of dollars. Well, then now we have to go from that point and say, if your real expectation is $10,000 a month, how in the world are we making that possible? Is it possible with your existing audience, with your existing business strategy already? Is that possible? If it's not, then let's scale it down to make it possible. It might not be 10,000, it might be 5, like you said.
Right. And I mean, I think that lesson of setting goals that are what you're really wanting as opposed to what you think you need, that's always a difficult coaching thing to do. And you've worked with many more creators or creatives and artists and startup businesses than I have. Like you've worked with like over 60 of them since you started doing this stuff back in like 2020. How do you get them to pause and to take stock of these things? Like what do you do to try to shake them off of that, whatever it is they happen to be fixed on, fixated on at the moment? Like, do you have some tried and true techniques, or what do you generally find is the thing that wakes them up?
I just ask the questions. It's not a magical anything. It's just, is this true? It's like that's the best question to ask sometimes. If you say, my assumption is, I assume that 10 people are going to buy my course. Is that true? Is where we validate that the distance between my assumption and what actually happens is validating that assumption, because a lot of entrepreneurs and business owners have assumptions, and they sit in their house and they make lots of assumptions, and then they put all of their plans together and then they announce it to the world. And sometimes they haven't asked anyone about these solutions that they're providing. And if you haven't talked with people like your ideal members, which I focus a lot on in the book, you're not going to be able to provide the solution that they need because you didn't ask them what they need. You're just assuming the solution that they're looking for. You're assuming that they even know they have a problem. So,
yeah. So you could take either side of this question that you like, but I'm kind of curious, of the customers you worked with, are there any standout successes you want to give a shout out to, or are there any that maybe didn't go so well that you want to keep anonymous, but maybe say like, hey, this is kind of where they had the tough turning point?
I give a lot of examples in the book. Are there any specific ones that you liked in the book? I wanted to ask that first. That pop out.
Well, I mean, I know you mentioned the polka dot powerhouse.
Oh yeah. The polka dot powerhouse is interesting. I just joined that community within the last year. I'm only a little bit over a year as a member. They have local chapters throughout the world. There's one in my area in Lancaster. And I was at a Chamber of Commerce event, and someone had invited me to this group, and I met them, and I wanted to keep coming back because I was really resonating with the idea of building relationships over transactions. And so they're really focused on like making connections, building relationships. They have this thing called .connect. So, at the end of meetings, you can say, oh, I wanted to meet up with so-and-so, and they give you an intentional way to set up a time to intentionally talk with somebody one-to-one. And they request that you don't sell things at that first call. So as on either side, we're going into that call, and hopefully we're just talking as individuals and getting to know each other as humans versus here's my widget or here's my service, hire me. So I think coming from that aspect was really helpful for me to join as a member. And then I've been part of it for a year, and I went to an event this summer where the CEO, she has been doing these trips across the country. And actually today, Polka Dot Powerhouse has their global event, and they're in the Midwest. They're in Milwaukee, I think, or I forget where.
Because she had a connection to Wisconsin, didn't she?
Wisconsin, yeah. They're in Wisconsin. Minnesota. No, they're in Minnesota. Sorry. I didn't go, so obviously. So.
Okay. it's Shannon Crotty, who's the
She's
head of that.
she's
Yeah.
originally, I think, from the Midwest.
I think I think it said in the book Wisconsin, because of course living in Wisconsin myself, I immediately went, oh, okay, that's cool.
Yeah.
There's a connection there.
But she had an interesting story where she was sharing about they have a successful strategy, because what happened was she bought a magazine, or she started a magazine. I can't remember exactly. She had a magazine, and she decided to sell that. And she wanted to build a connection company, and all based on the premise of the things I mentioned earlier about having a genuine relationship with people. And so since 2012, they have, I think, over 3,500 members globally, and they have active communities. The community that I'm in is 160 members and very active, and lots of events to participate in, online and in person. So I think one of the successful things that she realized in the beginning was she needed a team. And she didn't do this on her own. And a lot of community builders I meet, they're trying to do this all by themselves. Community is not meant to be by yourself endeavor. It's a collaborative endeavor. It's not just collaborative with partners, it's also collaborative with members. So I think what's great about that community as well is they're always focused on getting feedback from their members at the end of each meeting and throughout the month. Our host would send us, making sure that we're getting what we need out of the community. So I think those are examples of really positive communities that I've been a part of. I'll say that one community I could point out just recently this year is MIA, which is Mission Impact Academy, and it's a AI community for women. Their mission is to educate women in tech to allow them better job security in the future, because they're learning these AI practices. And one of the co-founders of MIA met on a call with me early this year, and I helped set them up on getting them onboarded. And one of the things that they were doing initially was they had everybody, their team was on Slack. So the director of community and I really encouraged them to come over to Mighty Networks, which was the chosen platform that they decided to leave Slack. And once they really adopted that, it went so much faster for them inside the network. And I worked with them for about a month to set up just designing different ways for members to engage and connecting with what the resources that they have available. And they have an active community. I think there's over 700 members in there now, and it's just been really great to see them grow. So that's a use case of a client that I worked with that helps get them from one platform to another.
That's a great story, and of course I'm always interested in hearing about AI based communities and women in tech, which of course 2 weeks from now we've got Mary Blessing Okali, who's going to be coming in talking about She Code Africa too. There's some terrific efforts like that are going on right now. So very cool, very cool. So I don't want to spend a bunch of time on this, but I did want to acknowledge that it is a major effort to write a book. It is no small thing. And I didn't know if you wanted to say a few words about your journey through that, and like lessons learned. If anybody else is thinking about writing a book, what your recommendations might be.
Have money.
Yeah.
Have money. I didn't. That's one of the biggest things. If you have money, you can do a lot of things. It's just life, those things we think we can figure out a way to, but to have a really good quality book and to hire, really good quality designers and editors, it costs money. And so I did a crowdfunding campaign, which was okay. I raised almost $4,000, so that was helpful.
That's great.
So I would say the biggest challenge I had, besides the financial aspect, was sitting down and actually writing without worrying about all the other things, like who's going to buy the book, why would anybody care about this book, it's not going to be good, I'll have 10,000 people pick through it and tear it down, why do I want to put myself through all of that? Those were all blocks that I had to put on a shelf and let go of. And I had like a checklist on a whiteboard in my room of all the things I needed to do, and I would never get to the writing part. So I finally took everything off the whiteboard, and the only thing I had there was write. So until my book was done, that was the only thing to do. And I wrote the book in 2 months, in January and February. There was some preliminary writing in the fall, but it actually ended up getting a lot of the copy that I wrote in the end of 2022 ended up getting like either cut from with editors or just changed and transformed. So the initial book wasn't what ended up being the book. I think that is the other thing that like we think we have an idea what the book is going to look like, but being open to the process, because once you're open to the process, you'll be able to get more authentic stories. And I mean, the idea framework that I came up with, I worked on that for a long time. It wasn't like a thing I just
Didn't just
like,
throw it in
what?
there, right?
I didn't have a light bulb that said idea, Deb. An idea for anyone who hasn't read the book yet is identify, discover, evaluate, and assemble. So that's the acronym, that one of the acronyms that I reference in the book.
And I believe the other one is the CALM method that you mentioned as well. So we'll leave that as a teaser for anybody that hasn't seen the book yet. We'll get them to come in. But what I liked about it is that you did have some particular frameworks to help people think about like the necessary steps that they need to take to go through and make it a little bit easier to remember. And I'll just say, like you and I, we have interactions on a weekly basis, and it doesn't get said enough, but I greatly admire what you did, and congratulations.
What was your favorite part of the book?
You know, like I said, I see a lot of community building books. What I look for is sort of the personal stuff, and just sort of learning about you as a person and your journey was stand out for me. I really enjoy that. And by the way, thank you for the nice acknowledgement at the back. That it wasn't necessary, but it was sort of like something fun when I got to the end. I was like, oh, this is cool. It was very nice of you to do.
Yeah.
So for those of you just joining us, we've been talking to Deb Schell, the author of Creator to Community Builder, and you can buy the book on Amazon. We've got the link if you scroll back through the comments. Maybe Kalisa will drop it in one more time here before we wrap things up.
Yeah, there's a free digital copy available. So I'm giving away free digital copies from now until the end of the year. And that is in order to get as many people as possible to possibly pick up this book. And even just if you can scroll through it and, you know, give me some feedback, say, hey, Deb, I love this part, or this was a great thing. Those are helpful things to get the word out, because I feel like this book is really, really powerful for a lot of people. I think it's going to, I mean, I came into community building having no idea. And that's what my clients feel like. Like all the people I've talked with, they feel so lost. They look at all these videos and they watch all the things, and they're still just not clear on, well, how is this going to work for me? And I feel like I've really accomplished that in the book, that you can read that book and it can apply to any community builder and it can apply to any situation. It's just on how you can find a way to make it work for you with the prompting questions. And there is a companion workbook that is also going to be free that will be coming out in the next couple weeks. But if you are in my online community called Community Builders with Purpose, there's actually a copy inside of the workbook.
Yeah. And I am a member of that community. I have not downloaded the workbook yet, but I'm gonna check that out. Those workbooks are so useful, especially if you are a solopreneur or an entrepreneur or creator that wants to build something like this, but has never been through that process. Again, this puts you on the road to doing that work. And you know, and Deb, you've got such a warm way of introducing people to the good that building communities can do. I highly recommend it for anybody that's in that is in that position or that space where they're starting from scratch and they're just trying to figure out what to do. I think it's really good.
Well, and for people who are like stuck, well, I need new ideas.
Yeah, absolutely.
The other thing I wanted to share was that we do have an audio. I don't have an audio book, but I have an audio kind of version on the Community Strategy podcast. So if you're somebody that is much more into audiobooks, I don't have an actual audiobook, but I have, because that was too expensive, but I have a series on season 2 of the Community Strategy podcast that has excerpts from each chapter. I'm releasing them live right now. So there's about up to chapter 10. Chapter 11 will be coming out this Sunday.
And that is an excellent series, and you're an amazing podcast host. I know I've been interviewed by you before, and you're far more adept at it than I am at interviewing others. But that's great. Yeah, so definitely check out the podcast. Deb, as we're kind of wrapping up here, I'd like to know 2 things. One is what's next for you, and the other is, how do you find your calm when you're feeling stressed out?
How do I find calm? I find calm with my own presence right now. I'm enjoying alone time. That's basically what I'm really excited about is having more time to spend on doing some reading and writing. But in addition, what am I doing next? Well, I'm going to be working with community builders in our Community Builders with Purpose with the book club. So the book club kicked off a few weeks ago. So that's what I'll be hanging out inside the community with book club attendees every Tuesday until mid-December. So almost till the end of the year, right before the holidays. And then there is a giveaway, and I have a giveaway running as well, which you can also get details inside the community about that, and on my link tree about signing up for the giveaway, which has a couple different benefits there. And I announced those winners in the mid of June, right before the holidays. So.
Awesome. I don't know how you keep it all together, but it's amazing just to see you work. So that's great.
I'm trying to do whatever I can, because I'll tell you, it's energy, it's sweat. We were talking about sweat equity the other day. I'm like, I have a lot of sweat put into all of this stuff. And I'm just hoping eventually, I wish I could sweat money, but it doesn't work that way.
Well, that'll come.
But that'll come over time. But right now, I'm just excited to learn about everybody who's building a community right now, what their challenges are. And we're talking about those things in the community and on the book club. So that's what's next for me. Is I like to have downtime, but I also like to collaborate with people. I think I'm becoming I used to be an extrovert, but I think I'm an ambivert. I need my quiet time.
You need both. Yeah. I'm definitely with you on that. I don't derive energy from being in large groups of people. I can do it, but then I've got to have sort of my me time to just get away and sort of recharge the batteries a little bit. So I totally empathize with that. Deb, if somebody wants to work with you, if they want to consult with you around their community they're planning to build, if they want to engage you we didn't really even talk about your work with the UMAP, kind of consulting that you do, which I've been through and highly recommend to anybody.
Oh yeah. Tell me your experience on that so far.
It's been great. So we went through at the outset the Strengths Finder test and kind of identified, my top 5 traits and sort of how I tend to work and what I like to do. And then we went through the UMAP exercises to kind of discuss work styles and sort of this, really breaking it down into the kinds of tasks that I'm good at, the things that I'm good at but don't like to do, and the things that I'm good at but do like to do, and the things that I never want to do, which I think it's so important to always try to do things that raises awareness about yourself and kind of what you knowing where you should be spending your time and effort, and knowing what to cut away. I'm a big fan of Bruce Lee, who talks about sort of what can you leave out, and this was a good practice of that. So I appreciated your coaching through that.
Yeah. So I'm a UMAP coach. UMAP is an assessment tool that helps you identify your strengths, your values, aligns your preferred skills, and identifies your burnout skills. And so I've been working with Todd for the last few weeks on that. And I I feel like it's going so well. So if anybody else is interested in learning about UMAP or any of my services, you can go to findcalmhere.com, and they're all listed on that website.
Wonderful.
And you can book a call with me because I'd love to talk with you.
And you should, because Deb is an extremely insightful consultant. I've worked side by side with her with some live projects, and she brings a lot of good wherever she goes. Deb, I think we're kind of wrapping up our time here. Was there anything else that you wanted to bring up or wanted to put in a plug for before we close out for the day?
Just to say that thanks for having me here. Thanks for everybody who was in the chat that was listening and engaging with us there. And I don't think there was anything we missed. Just we talked about the podcast and the book. There's lots of resources on my website. I have some recommended tech tools that are listed there. And there are some worksheets. And like I said, there will be a workbook version coming out, like a companion workbook that's going to be coming out to the public, and that'll be in the next few weeks. But you can grab it earlier if you're a member of the community. So I put the link in our chat to the Community Builders with Purpose community. If you're interested in joining that, it's free. So that's it.
Deb, thank you so much. I look forward to our future collaborations, and congratulations again on the book. Again, anybody, you can get it Creator to Community Builder, available on Amazon, but you can get a free e-copy by following the link that's in the chat. Those of you who joined here on the live stream, thank you so much for jumping in and being a part of, we appreciate being a part of your day, your Friday. And for those of you who happen to catch us on the replay, please add your comments and ideas either here on LinkedIn or out on the Clocktower Advisors YouTube channel. Please like, comment, follow. We do definitely appreciate all of those things if you get the chance to. And then be sure to check out Deb's podcast as well. So in the meantime, join us again on Friday, October the 27th with Mary Blessing Okali from She Code Africa. We're going to have an amazing conversation about the community that she's building in Africa for women in tech. And I hope that you take some time for yourself this weekend. I know I'm going to be going to the Apple Fest event in Two Rivers, Wisconsin, where I'm hoping to get some delicious apple pie or some other kinds of treats. Be good to yourself this weekend, because if you're not good to yourself first, you're no good to anybody else. And we will see you here in 2 weeks. Kalisa, if you would, please roll the credits. We'll see you guys later. Bye-bye.